great hall of the Galactic Council was cold. Not just in temperature, but in spirit. 12 species had gathered here for 10 million years to decide the fate of civilizations. Today, they would decide the fate of humanity. Admiral G1 Park stood alone in the center of the chamber. Around him, rising like mountains, sat the representatives of the galaxy's oldest and most powerful species. Their eyes, some with 3 pupils, some glowing like dying stars, all looked down at him with the same expression: disgust. "The vote is complete," said Councillor Veltries of the Morvani. His voice echoed through the hall like thunder. His gray skin stretched tight over his skull as he spoke. 12 in favor. 0 against. Humanity is hereby expelled from all galactic territories. Guan did not flinch. He had expected this. For 50 years, the Council had watched humanity spread across the stars. They had watched humans adapt to worlds that should have killed them. They had watched human scientists solve problems that had puzzled alien minds for centuries. And they had grown afraid. "You have 90 galactic cycles to withdraw all human presence from Council space," Veltries continued. "Your colonies will be seized. Your stations will be dismantled. Any human found outside your home system after this period will be executed without trial." A murmur of approval rippled through the Council. The Corvani delegation clicked their mandibles in satisfaction. The Velith representatives hummed a song of victory. Juan finally spoke. His voice was quiet, but it carried through the hall. "May I ask why?" Veltries leaned forward. His 3 eyes narrowed. "You know why, human? Your species is a disease. You spread too fast. You change too quickly. You do not follow the natural order of things. We have broken no laws. You are the law that needs breaking." Veltries stood now, his robes flowing behind him. "The galaxy flourished for 10 million years without your kind. It will do so again. We do not hate you, Admiral. We simply do not need you. The universe will forget you ever existed." Giwan looked around the chamber one last time. He memorized every face, every species, every cold, superior stare. Then he turned and walked out without another word. 3 weeks later, Captain Hannah Yoon stood on the bridge of the evacuation ship Dawn's Promise. Through the window, she watched the colony of New Busan burn. Alien ships circled the planet like vultures, firing down at the cities humanity had built over 200 years. "All civilians are aboard, Captain," said her first officer. Hannah nodded. She could not speak. In her pocket was a photograph of her daughter, who had been born on New Busan. Her daughter had taken her first steps on that planet, had spoken her first words there. Now it was Ash. "Set course for Seoul," Hannah finally said. "Maximum speed." The fleet of evacuation ships turned toward home. Behind them, 17 colonies burned. Millions of humans watched through windows as everything they had built disappeared. Some cried. Some screamed. Most simply stared in silence, too shocked to feel anything at all. On Earth, the news spread like wildfire. People gathered in the streets, staring at screens that showed their colonies being destroyed. They saw the Council's announcement played on repeat. They heard Veltries call them a disease. President Do Yan Kong addressed the world from the steps of the United Earth Parliament. His face was calm, but his hands shook with barely controlled rage. "Today, the galaxy has told us we do not belong," he said. "They have taken our homes. They have killed our people. They have told us to disappear, to be forgotten, to fade into nothing." He paused. The crowd was silent. The whole world was silent. "They want us forgotten. We will become unforgettable," the crowd erupted. Not in despair, but in fury. In determination, in a promise that this was not the end. In the months that followed, humanity pulled back. Every ship returned to the Sol system. Every human came home. The galaxy watched with satisfaction as the troublesome species retreated to its tiny corner of space. Then the scientists activated Project Barrier. It had been humanity's secret for decades, a technology they had never shared with the Council. A way to create a wall of energy so powerful that nothing could pass through it. Not ships. Not signals. Not even light. Admiral Guan Park, now retired, stood on Mars and watched the barrier rise. It spread across the solar system like a curtain closing on a stage. Stars disappeared behind it one by one. His granddaughter, young Nari, stood beside him. "Grandfather, are we hiding?" Giwan shook his head. "No, child. We are preparing for what?" He looked down at her with eyes that had seen too much. "For the day they realize they need us. And they will. They just don't know it yet." The barrier closed. The last signal from Earth reached the galaxy, a single image of the human flag, with words written beneath it in every galactic language. "We will remember." Then there was silence. The council celebrated. They held festivals across 100 worlds. They erected monuments to their victory over the human threat. Veltries himself gave a speech declaring a new age of peace and stability. "The infection has been contained," he announced. "The galaxy is pure once more." But deep in the archives of the Morvani homeworld, buried under layers of classified information, there was a file. It was 10 million years old. It spoke of a threat from beyond known space. A thing called the Hollow that had nearly consumed all life in the galaxy. The file ended with a warning. "We defeated it. But barely. If it returns, we will need those who can adapt. We will need those who can change. We will need those who refuse to die." The council had forgotten this warning. Humanity had not. Behind the barrier, in the silence of exile, they were already building something new, something the galaxy had never seen, something that would change everything. The universe wanted to forget humanity. That was its first mistake. 100 years passed behind the barrier to the galaxy. Humanity was dead. The council stopped thinking about them after the first decade. Young aliens grew up never knowing humans existed. The Sol system became a dark spot on star maps, marked only with the warning, "Quarantine zone. Do not approach." Something extraordinary was happening. Lead scientist Mingy Cho stood in the deepest laboratory on Earth. Around her, machines hummed with energy that should not exist. Screens showed equations that would have driven alien scientists mad with confusion. In the center of the room, a small sphere floated in the air, glowing with soft blue light. "Is it ready?" asked Commander Taeon Lee. He was a tall man with hard eyes. He had been born in the first year of exile, raised on stories of what the council had done. Mingy smiled. It was the smile of someone who had spent 60 years working toward this moment. "The Prometheus engine is complete. We can bend space and time itself. We can step between dimensions. We can go anywhere in the universe in the blink of an eye." Taeon stared at the glowing sphere. "Can the council stop us?" "The council cannot even understand what this is. Their technology is millions of years old, but it has not changed. They became comfortable. They stopped growing." Mingy touched the sphere gently. "We had nothing else to do but grow." In another part of the solar system, on a station orbiting Saturn, sociologist Yoonji Beek was finishing her life's work. She had spent decades documenting how humanity had changed during exile. "Before the barrier, we were divided," she wrote. "Nations fought nations. Religions clashed with religions. We wasted our energy on ourselves. But exile changed us. When the universe told us we were nothing, we finally realized we were one people, one species, one family." She looked out the window at Saturn's rings. Ships moved through them, thousands of ships, all built in secret, all carrying weapons and technology the galaxy had never imagined. "We are not the same humans who were cast out," Yoonji wrote. "We are something new, something better, something the council should have feared from the beginning." Young engineer Sun Woo. Han made a discovery that would change everything. He had been working on improving the barriers. Communication array when he found a flaw. Not a dangerous flaw, but an interesting one. A small gap that allowed certain types of signals to pass through. Signals from outside. "I can hear them," he told his supervisor. "I can hear everything the galaxy is saying." Within days, Sun Woo had built a monitoring system. Humanity, for the first time in a century, could listen to the universe they had been cut off from. What they heard was troubling. The Velith have attacked the Corvani border, Sunwoo reported to the Council of Earth's leaders. The Morvani are demanding tribute from 3 smaller species. The Council claims everything is peaceful, but their communications tell a different story. They are fighting each other. President Sujinru listened carefully. She was the 5th president since exile began, and she had dedicated her life to preparing humanity for whatever came next. So the perfect galaxy is not so perfect after all, she said. There is more. Sunwoo pulled up another recording. Deep space sensors from the outer rim. Something is wrong out there. Ships are disappearing. Whole colonies are going silent. The Council is hiding it, but they are scared of something. The room fell silent. Everyone knew the old stories. The warnings buried in human databases, stolen from alien archives before the exile. The Hollow. The thing that 8 stars Commander Taiyun stood up. If the Hollow is returning, the Council cannot stop it. Their civilizations are old and tired. They have not fought a real war in millions of years. And we have, asked Ambassador Yuna Song. She was ancient now, one of the few survivors from before exile. She remembered the burning colonies. She remembered watching her friends die. We have done nothing but prepare for war, Taeyeon said. Every child learns to fight. Every factory builds weapons. Every scientist works on new technology. We are the most prepared civilization in the history of the galaxy. Yuna shook her head slowly. Prepared for what? To save them? After what they did to us? The argument that followed lasted for days. Some wanted to let the galaxy burn. They had earned their suffering. Others said humanity should rise above revenge, that saving their enemies would prove humans were better than the Council ever believed. Minji Cho, now old and tired, spoke last. Yes. I've given my life to building the tools that could save or destroy the galaxy, she said, the choice of which is not mine to make. But I will say this. We have become powerful not because we wanted revenge, but because we refused to give up. If we use that power only to watch others die, then we have become the monsters they accused us of being. She looked around the room at the leaders of humanity. We could leave tomorrow. We could take back everything. The question is not whether we can help. The question is, what kind of species we want to be when the barrier falls. The debate continued, but Minji's words hung in the air. Outside the window, the barrier still glowed. Beyond it, the galaxy burned slowly, unaware that the species they had thrown away was the only one that could save them. In her private quarters, Minji looked at a photograph on her wall. It showed Earth before the exile, when humans still believed they had a place among the stars. They wanted a galaxy without us, she whispered. Soon they will learn why that was the worst mistake they ever made. She closed her eyes and slept. In her dreams, she saw the barrier falling. She saw human ships pouring into the galaxy. She saw alien faces, once proud and cruel, now filled with fear and hope. She saw the future, and it was coming fast. The Morvani homeworld had stood for 12 million years. It had survived wars, plagues, and the rise and fall of countless civilizations. It was the heart of the Council. It's a symbol of galactic power. It died in 17 hours. Councillor Veltri stood in his palace as the sky turned black. Not the black of night, but something deeper, something hungry. The stars themselves were disappearing, swallowed by a darkness that moved like a living thing. What is happening? He screamed at his generals. What is this? No one could answer. Their weapons did nothing. Their shields meant nothing. The darkness simply ate through everything it touched. Ships, buildings, people, all consumed, leaving nothing behind. Veltris watched his world die. He watched his people run in terror, only to be swallowed by the void. He watched 12 million years of history become nothing. His last words were a whisper. We were wrong about everything. Then the darkness took him too. The news spread across the galaxy like a disease. The Morvani homeworld was gone. Not conquered. Not destroyed. Simply erased from existence. Where a planet had been, there was now only empty space. The council met in emergency session. For the first time in millions of years, they were afraid. "It is the Hollow," said the eldest Corvani delegate, his voice shaking. "The ancient enemy, the eater of worlds." "We thought it was a myth." "It was not a myth," said another delegate. "Our ancestors defeated it long ago. But we have forgotten how." Panic spread through the chamber. The Hollow moved faster than any fleet. It ignored all weapons. It could not be reasoned with or bribed. It simply consumed, and it was heading toward the core systems. In the months that followed, 7 more worlds fell. Refugee ships flooded the remaining systems. Billions of aliens crowded onto planets that could not hold them. Starvation and disease followed. Governments collapsed. The perfect order of the council crumbled into chaos. On the edges of the galaxy, a young Corvani diplomat named Thalon watched his species die. He had grown up hearing stories about the human exile. He had been taught that humans were dangerous and unpredictable. Now, as the Hollow consumed everything he loved, he wondered if dangerous and unpredictable was exactly what the galaxy needed. "We have to contact them," he told the remains of the council. "The humans. They might be the only ones who can help." The delegates laughed at him. "The humans are dead. They have been silent for a century, or they are waiting," Thalon said. "Waiting for us to realize we need them." He was sent to the Soul Barrier as a joke. A foolish young diplomat on a foolish mission. No one expected him to succeed. No one expected the humans to even receive his message, but they did. Behind the barrier, Ambassador Unisong sat in her chair and listened to Thalon's transmission. She was very old now, her hair white and her hands thin, but her eyes still burned with memory. "Please," Thalon's voice said through the speakers. "We know what we did to you. We know we have no right to ask. But the Hollow is coming. Billions are dying. If you have any mercy left, please help us." Una turned off the transmission. She sat in silence for a long moment. "They cast us out," she finally said. "They burned our colonies. They called us a disease. And now they beg." Commander Taeyeon Lee stood beside her. "We should let them burn. They deserve it, perhaps," Una said. "But do we deserve to become like them?" The debate that followed was the largest in human history. Every citizen had a voice. Every opinion was heard. Some screamed for revenge. Others pleaded for mercy. Families were divided. Friends became enemies. Dr. Gisu Kwan, philosopher who had spent his life studying human nature, addressed the final assembly. "I understand the anger," he said. "I feel it too. When I was a child, my grandmother told me stories about New Busan, about the home she lost, about the friends who died. I grew up hating the council." He paused, looking out at the millions watching. "But hatred is a prison. If we let them die because of what they did, we trap ourselves in the past forever. We become defined by their cruelty, not by our own choices." Taeyeon stood up. "And if we save them, what then? They will smile and thank us, and then they will find a reason to exile us again." Jisoo nodded. "Maybe, or maybe we show them something they have never seen. A species that helps its enemies. A civilization that chooses mercy over revenge. Maybe we change them. And even if we don't, at least we will know who we truly are." President Sujinru called for the vote. It was close. Closer than anyone expected. But in the end, mercy won. Sujin broadcast her message to the galaxy. It reached every surviving world. Every refugee ship. Every alien hiding in terror from the approaching darkness. "You wanted a universe without humans," she said. "Now you beg for our return. We have heard your cries. We have seen your suffering. And against the advice of many of our people, we have chosen to help." Her eyes were hard, but understand this. The galaxy you knew is over. The council that ruled for 10 million years is finished. When we come as equals, not as servants. We will fight the Hollow. We will save who we can. But we will never again kneel before species who saw us as a disease. She stood tall. "Prepare yourselves. Humanity is coming, and the universe will never forget what happens next." Light poured through the cracks. And somewhere in the darkness, the hollow felt something it had never felt before. Fear. The barrier fell like a curtain at the end of a play. Light flooded into the galaxy, and with it came the ships. 10,000 vessels emerged from the Sol system. They moved in perfect formation, each one larger than anything the galaxy had ever built. They glowed with energy that alien sensors could not understand. They traveled through space in ways that should have been impossible. Blinking from one location to another in heartbeats, Fleet Admiral Junho Shin stood on the bridge of the flagship, the Dawn's Promise 2, named after the evacuation ship from a century before. He was a calm man with a quiet voice, but his orders moved fleets. All ships, spread to assigned sectors, he said. Find survivors. Protect refugees. And when you find the hollow, show it what humanity has become. Across the galaxy, alien species watched in stunned silence as human ships appeared above their worlds. Not as conquerors, but as protectors. Medical supplies poured down from the sky. Food arrived for the starving. Human soldiers landed to defend cities that had once cheered for humanity's destruction. The first real battle happened at Kelver Station, a refugee center holding 3 million aliens. The hollow was approaching fast. A wall of darkness that swallowed everything in its path. Commander Hyeri Lim led the defense. She was young for her rank, but she had trained her entire life for this moment. Her soldiers were not ordinary fighters. They were phase soldiers, humans who had been modified to exist partially outside normal reality. Remember your training, Hyeri told her troops. The hollow consumes matter and energy. It cannot consume what it cannot touch. Stay phased, stay moving, stay alive. When the hollow hit Kelver Station, it expected easy prey. Instead, it found humans who could step between dimensions, appearing and disappearing like ghosts. It found weapons that cut through its essence, causing it pain for the first time in eons. It found a species that refused to be eaten. The battle lasted 6 hours. When it was over, Kelver Station still stood. The hollow had retreated across the galaxy. Aliens watched the footage in disbelief. The humans had hurt the hollow. The humans had made it bleed. Captain Hannah Yoon, now 93 years old, had insisted on joining the return fleet. Her doctors said she was too old. She told them she would die in space if she had to, but she would not miss this. Her ship brought her to New Busan, or rather, to where New Busan had been. The planet was still there, reclaimed by nature after a century without humans. The cities were ruins covered in alien plants. The spaceports were crumbling skeletons. Hannah landed alone. She walked through the streets where her daughter had played. She found the spot where her home had stood. Nothing remained but stones. She pulled out a flag from her bag. An Earth flag, the same design humans had used for centuries. She planted it in the ground. Came back, she whispered. Tears ran down her wrinkled face. It took 100 years, but we came back. Her granddaughter, Nara, found her there an hour later. The young cadet knelt beside her grandmother and held her hand. Is this where Mom was born? Nara asked. Hannah nodded. This is where everything began, and where I thought everything ended. She looked at her granddaughter with tired eyes. Promise me something. Anything. Promise me that no matter what happens, no matter how powerful we become, we will never do to others what they did to us. Promise me we will always remember what it felt like to lose everything. Nara squeezed her grandmother's hand. I promise. The war against the hollow lasted months. Human fleets pushed the darkness back system by system. Scientists worked day and night to find a permanent solution. And slowly, they began to understand what the hollow truly was. It was not a creature. It was a wound. A tear in the fabric of reality itself, bleeding darkness into the universe. The ancient species who had fought it before had only managed to push it back into its dimension. They had never healed the wound. Ming-Yi Cho, despite being over 130 years old, led the team that found the answer. She called it the Prometheus Seal, a device that could stitch reality back together, closing the wound forever. But there was a cost. Someone has to guide the device into the tear, Mingi explained to the War Council. Someone has to merge with it, become part of the seal, hold it closed for eternity. It is a one-way journey. Silence filled the room. Everyone understood what she was saying. I will do it, Minji said. I built this technology. I understand it better than anyone, and I am old. My life is nearly over anyway. Let me use what remains of it to save everyone. Commander Taeyeon stepped forward. Minji, there has to be another way. She smiled at him. The same smile she had worn when she first activated the Prometheus engine a century ago. There is no other way. There is only the right thing to do. The final assault began 3 days later. Every human ship, every phase soldier, every weapon humanity had built converged on the Hollow's origin point. The darkness fought back with everything it had. Ships were destroyed. Soldiers fell. But humanity did not stop. Hyeri Lim led her team through the heart of the Hollow itself. Carrying the Prometheus seal, alien volunteers fought beside them, species who had once voted for humanity's exile, now dying to give humans a chance to save the universe. They reached the tier, a wound in space that bled darkness and hunger and death. Mingi activated the seal. Light exploded outward, pushing back the darkness. The tier began to close, reality stitching itself back together. The Hollow screamed, a sound that echoed through dimensions. The cry of something ancient finally meeting its end. Minji felt herself dissolving, becoming one with the seal. Her last thought was of Earth, of the garden where she grew up, of the stars she had spent her life trying to reach. The tier closed, the Hollow was gone, and in its place, where darkness had been, a new star was born. A star made of light and human sacrifice and hope. They named it Minji's Light. It shines still. 7 years had passed since the Hollow War. The galaxy was still healing, but it was alive. That was more than anyone had dared hope for. The old council chamber on Nexus Prime stood empty now. No one wanted to meet in the place where humanity's exile had been decided. Instead, a new structure had been built on neutral ground. The Galactic Assembly, they called it. A place where all species could speak as equals. Sun Wuhan. Once a young engineer who discovered how to listen through the barrier, now stood at the Assembly's central podium. He had become humanity's chief diplomat, though he still felt more comfortable with machines than with politics. We are not here to rule, he said to the representatives of 47 species. We do not want an empire. We do not want servants or subjects. We want partners. We want a galaxy where every species can grow and learn and reach for the stars together. He looked around the chamber. Many faces looked back at him with hope. Some still held fear. A few, the oldest survivors of the council, carried shame they could not hide. But partnership requires equals, Sunwoo continued. It requires trust that must be earned, not demanded. The old ways are dead. The days when some species ruled and others served are finished. If we are to survive what the universe throws at us next, we must stand together. The Assembly voted to give humanity permanent veto power. Not because humans demanded it, but because every other species asked for it. They wanted humans to have the power to stop any decision. They trusted human judgment more than their own. Sunwoo accepted the responsibility with a heavy heart. He knew what it meant. Humanity could never again be the young species learning from its elders. They were the elders now. On the Morvani refugee world, a ceremony was taking place. The survivors of that ancient species, once the proudest members of the council, had gathered to formally apologize to humanity. Commander Taeyeon Lee attended as Earth's representative. He stood stiffly as the Morvani leader spoke. We called you a disease, the leader said. His voice cracked with emotion. We burned your homes. We cast you into darkness. And when the true darkness came for us, you reached out your hand and saved us anyway. He knelt before Taeyeon. Behind him, thousands of Morvani knelt as well. We do not deserve your forgiveness. We ask only that you allow us to try to earn it. Taeyeon was quiet for a long moment. He had spent his entire life hating these people. He had dreamed of watching them suffer. Now they knelt before him, broken and sorry. He found that he felt nothing but tired. "Stand up," he finally said. His voice was cold, but not cruel. "Kneeling means nothing. Actions mean everything. Show us you have changed through what you do, not what you say. The dead cannot hear your apologies. Only the living can see your choices." He turned and walked away. It was not forgiveness, but it was a door left open. Cadet Narayun took a shuttle to the edge of the galaxy. There, floating in the light of the new star, was the Minji Cho Memorial Station, a monument to the woman who had given her life to close the wound in reality. Nara never met Minji. She knew her only through stories and recordings. But somehow, she felt connected to her. The station was quiet. Only a few visitors came each day. Nara walked through the halls, reading the displays that told Minji's story. A scientist who had spent a century building the tools to save a galaxy that had rejected her people. A woman who had chosen sacrifice over survival. At the center of the station was a statue. Minji stood with her arms raised, light streaming from her hands. The plaque beneath read, "She became the light that closed the darkness." Nara stood before the statue for a long time. She thought about her grandmother Hannah, who had finally passed away 2 years after returning to New Busan. She thought about her own future. The career in the fleet she was just beginning. "I'll try to be worthy of what you did," she whispered to the statue. "I will try to make sure it meant something." On Earth, in a garden outside Seoul, former President Soo Jin-roo sat in the afternoon sun. She had retired after the war, her work finally complete. Now she spent her days tending flowers and watching the sky. A Corvani child played nearby, one of the many refugees humanity had taken in after the war. His parents had died when the Hollow consumed their world. Human families had adopted him, and thousands like him. An aide approached Soo-jin with a tablet. "Madam President, I'm sorry to disturb you. The historians are asking for one more interview about the war. They want to know if you have any regrets." Soo-jin watched the child laugh as he chased a butterfly. His clicking sounds mixed with the human children's voices in a strange and beautiful harmony. "Regrets," she said softly. "They ask if I regret saving the species who tried to destroy us, do you?" Soo-jin smiled. It was the smile of someone who had carried impossible burdens and finally set them down. "They feared us because we were different," she said. "They could not understand how we could change and grow so fast. They could not understand how we could adapt to anything. They saw our strength and called it dangerous." She gestured to the children playing. "But our greatest strength was never our technology or our armies. It was our capacity to choose who we want to be. The Council chose fear. They chose exile. They chose to throw us away." She looked up at the sky where ships from 100 worlds passed overhead, connected by trade routes that had not existed a decade before. "We chose mercy. We chose to save them anyway. Not because they deserved it, but because that is who we are. That is what being human means." The aide nodded and began to leave. Then she turned back. "One last question. The historians want to know what you think the future holds." Soo-jin watched the Corvani child finally catch his butterfly. He held it gently in his hands, showing it to his human friends before letting it go. "The future holds whatever we build," she said. "The galaxy is not our enemy anymore. The Council is gone. The Hollow is sealed. Now comes the hard part." "What hard part?" "Learning to live together, learning to trust each other, building something that lasts." She closed her eyes and felt the sun on her face. The universe wanted to forget humanity. Instead, they will remember us forever. Not as conquerors, not as destroyers, but as the species that came back from exile and chose to light a candle instead of cursing the darkness. She smiled one last time. "It is our legacy." That is what being human means. Above the garden, the sky stretched out forever. Stars shone in the daylight, visible through Earth's new atmospheric shields. Among them, brightest of all, is Minji's light, a reminder of sacrifice, a beacon of hope, and a promise that humanity would never be forgotten again.